Hi everybody, Jennifer Blevin-Smith with Integral Clinic Solutions, and you're watching my YouTube channel, Navigating the Business of Medicine. Today I want to talk about HIPAA breach reporting. This isn't really a fun topic that a lot of people like to discuss, and honestly, nobody likes to think about HIPAA breaches because we hear that term, those two words together, and we're like, oh, we cringe and, furrow our brow, and it's just very uncomfortable. But it's a reality, and things happen in healthcare that sometimes you don't have control over. So that's why I just wanted to bring this up, because especially if you have never ran a practice before, if you're a new owner, a new manager, you might not be aware of some of the requirements that are out there for being a HIPAA officer in your practice. The HIPAA officer in your practice should understand all of the requirements regarding HIPAA, and that includes how to report breaches, the security and privacy of everything, putting together your internal protocols and getting all the paperwork required that needs to be out and about, showing in the practice, patients need to sign. There's so much to it. And so what I'm going to be talking about today, there's also more to the breach reporting. I'm just giving a very basic overview. So I encourage you to do your own diligence and make sure that you understand this compliance. It is very important, and you don't want to put your practice at an unnecessary high risk of liability because you don't understand HIPAA and all the requirements when it comes to compliance. HIPAA breaches can happen unintentionally, and there's really honestly times in my past that I have accidentally done something and I was like, oh no, I did not mean to do that. I was so caught up in what I was doing, I didn't secure an email, or I faxed something to the wrong number, or something really silly that was easy to reverse and fix, but at the same time, it still needs to be recorded. Now, there's different levels of violations of HIPAA, and breaches are basically the person who is intended to have access to PHI or that shouldn't have access to PHI gets access to PHI. So basically, PHI, it's protected health information, is shown to or accessed by someone who shouldn't have. And there's all the requirements of who has the access to PHI, who shouldn't, and when it should be accessed, etc. And that's all in the HIPAA Act. So you should be familiar with that. I'm sure you've had tons of HIPAA training, but breaches occur. And immediately upon knowing or identifying that you or an employee has breached a HIPAA violation, it needs to be reported to the internal HIPAA officer, privacy officer, whatever you call it in your practice. Because that person needs to be made aware and they need to document it. They need to ask all of the questions. Usually someone needs to write up some kind of incident report that you keep internally so you understand what happened, so that you can hopefully figure out how to mitigate it in the future. Also, the patient needs to be notified whose information was involved, and there's certain requirements on what that needs to look like as far as in writing and contacting them, etc., and what should be in that letter. These HIPAA breaches need to be recorded throughout each calendar year, and then at the end of the year, the Secretary of Privacy, of HHS, has a website, and I'm actually going to put the links that will be helpful for this video, like resources, in the description box for the video, so check them out so you can bookmark them. But all of the HIPAA breaches need to be reported within 60 calendar days from the end of the calendar year, and so HHS can track them basically. And you want to make sure that your internal recording and documentation is exactly what I said before. What happened? Who was involved? How is it going to be rectified, or how was it rectified? How is it going to be avoided in the future? What was identified as maybe some areas that need improvement? Those kinds of things, because if they see the same thing happening over and over at the same entity, they're going to start digging a little deeper, asking more questions, and you don't want that. If the breach concerns more than 500 patients, that's a whole nother ballgame, because that has to be reported in a shorter amount of time. It has to go into the media. I mean, there's so many more things, because it's considered a large HIPAA breach, and those are not taken lightly at all, which none of it should be. But 500 people, I mean, it's just ginormous. And maybe you've been part of being a patient in a big entity that's had some kind of technical IT issues, whether it's a ransomware or something like that, and you get something in the mail that tells you that your information was taken, and you know, they have to notify you, but it's really upsetting and people feel violated. And so that's why this is something that you should understand the protocols very well, and what's expected of you, what the repercussions are, training your staff appropriately so they understand all of that, and just making sure that you're following everything you need to, because you don't want to get in trouble for things, because they're not going to say, or accept, I should say, you saying, I didn't know, I didn't understand. Because as a practice owner, practice manager, anybody who's taken HIPAA training, you're expected to know this stuff, and if you don't, you're supposed to find the answers. And there's a bunch of websites out there with HHS that explains all of this. Like I said, I'll put a link in the video description, but make sure you're well versed in this, and that you follow up and assign somebody who you trust in your office to be that privacy officer, that HIPAA officer that people report these things to, and that you know they're going to do everything the right way that's expected. If you have any questions or comments about this, please leave that in the comments below. Smash the thumbs up button if today's video was helpful, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Also, share my video, please, with whomever you feel would like it, benefit from it, is interested in it. I really appreciate that. All right, you guys, stay healthy. Bye-bye.